You're listening to Soap Dirt, the latest in television entertainment news.
Hey, Young and the Restless fans. So we've got this mystery man, Aristotle Dumas, about to arrive in town. And there's a lot of speculation about who he might be. And one thing we've heard recently is that it could be a blast from the past, and the name Brooks Prentice has come up. It's Belinda from Soap Dirt, and we're going to talk about whether Billy Flynn's new character is Dumas, whose real identity could be Brooks Prentice. And before we get into it, if you are not following us, please reach down and hit that subscribe button. All right, so we got this character, Dumas. Everybody's talking about a billionaire and a power player in the business world, but nobody's ever met him. They don't know much about him. Victor is his longtime rival, and Damian hasn't even met him, even though he's worked for him a couple of years. But what if this mystery man is somebody familiar yet unexpected? Now, we've seen a bunch of different suggestions. I'm always interested in seeing what people think is going on. And on Soap social media, when it comes to who is Dumas, I've seen people saying it's Victor. No, that doesn't make any sense. He is genuinely irritated by the guy, so that's just not going to be what it is. I've also seen people suggesting it's Devon Hamilton, which also makes no sense. Why would he? This Dumas thing has been going on for years, so you got to think about that, you know? And because we know from Damian, at least several years that he's been involved with him. So it would be random and illogical if it were Devon or Victor. I've also seen some fans wondering if it could be Kane Ashby. But by the way, Daniel Goddard has just started a new role over on General Hospital, and he's doing great in the part, by the way. Aside from that little wrinkle, Kane would be an intriguing choice. And we've talked before here that Tucker actually fits the bill because of his ties to the Winters and the Abbotts and dislike of Victor. However, there's no sign that Trevor St is returning or that the role is coming back. And I really did like Trevor St. But I don't think it's him either. But it still could be a blast from the past, just not somebody so obvious as in somebody from way, way, way back. And so one of the things I've seen people talking about, and I decided to look into, and I find very intriguing, is that Dumas might be tied back to Genoa City's original legacy families. Longtime YNR fans may remember like OG Stuart Brooks, and he had 4 daughters. One of them was Laura Lee Brooks, who was called Lori, and she married Lance Prentiss. So the name Brooks and Prentice right there tells you where we're going. And he was upset. There was something going on. There was a reason for it, but he cheated on his wife, Lori, with her sister, Leslie Brooks, who got pregnant. And she gave birth to a baby boy that was named Brooks Prentice. And by the way, the character of Lori Brooks, whose real name is Laura Lee, was actually named after Young and the Restless creator William Bell's daughter, Laura Lee Bell, who of course plays Christine Williams. So Lance Prentiss was played by John McCook, who now plays Eric Forrester over on Bold and the Beautiful. So the woman he cheated with, his wife's sister, his sister-in-law, Leslie, she had a breakdown and then ran off and she had amnesia. Anyway, she left her son Brooks with her sister Lori. And then later, Leslie gave up all of her rights and let Lori and her husband Lance adopt Leslie's biological child, which is also Lance's biological child. It was very typical soapy stuff. And Brooks has not been seen since like the mid 80s, I think, when he was maybe a tween. He was born in 1977, but in the 80s, he was on for a few scenes and he looked to be around in the 10-year-old range. Anyway, of interest, actor Billy Flynn was born in 1985, while Brooks was born in 1977. That's not a terrible span of years, you know? So Brooks was last on YNR in courtroom scenes, and he wound up rejecting both his birth mom, Leslie, and his adoptive mom, Lori Brooks, because there was just a lot of drama. There was a custody thing. There was a whole blackmail letter and suicide attempt. There was just a whole lot of soapy stuff. And Brooks also said he didn't want anything more to do with his dad, Lance, either. And Brooks went off to Paris, never to be seen again. So just in case it is him, let's talk about how Victor ties back to Brooks Prentice's life. So his dad, Lance Prentiss, had a company, Prentice Industries, and Victor stole it from Lance. He said it was to teach him a lesson. You know how Victor likes to do. He later gave the company to Lori Brooks, Lance's ex, as an engagement present because Victor was going to marry Lance's ex-wife. But Lori pulled a fast one, left Victor at the altar, and went back to Lance, and of course got his company back for him, all that. So Brooks is somebody who could actually have a grudge against Victor since he stole his family's company and was on and off awful to Lance and somewhat to Lori. Plus, Brooks has ties to Billy Abbott, who Dumas has been reaching out to. So his ties are through Jill Foster Abbott, who is the adoptive sister of Snapper Foster, who is currently treating Jill's heart condition. Snapper is married to another one of the Brooks daughters. So there is a line from the Brooks Prentice families to Jill and from there to Billy, which could explain why Brooks is reaching out to Billy if he is Dumas and wants to help him take back Chancellor from Victor because Billy's family company was taken just as Brooks' family company was taken back in the day. Plus, he'd have a grudge towards Victor because he did his parents dirty. And these literary references also align to Brooks and his past. So first of all, last time we saw him, when he was a young man, he was headed back to Paris. And of course, Alexander Dumas, who wrote The Count of Monte Cristo, is French. So there's the geographical tie-in. There was also a false letter back in the day that was tied to Lori Brooks' typewriter. And in the novel, in the Monte Cristo novel, there's a forged letter that was written by this character Danglars. And that's the name of one of Dumas' companies that we found out about from Damian. And then, of course, the whole premise of the novel, if you've not read it, and I haven't read it since like 9th grade, is that it's someone who's back for revenge for wrongs done them in their distant past. And that would explain a grudge against Victor. It'd be pretty cool to have a blast from a legacy family's past as part of the storyline. Victor has been destroying people's lives for years, and he's never suffered any lasting consequences for his actions. Like he'll be sent to prison, but then he gets right out and he doesn't serve the full term, you know? So it does seem like the puzzle pieces could fit if Brooks Prentice is the person behind the fake persona of Aristotle Dumas. Plus, it'd be huge to get a throwback to a couple of the original families on Y&R, the Prentices and the Brooks. So if we were sticking to real time, he would be about 48 years old, and Billy Flynn is a bit younger. He's 39, but Y&R de-aged Chance Chancellor when they brought in Connor Floyd as the recast to replace Donnie Boaz. So it's not out of the realm of possibility. I think they de-aged when they brought in Trevor St. John, they de-aged Tucker by a few years as well. So it's not something that they have a problem doing. Plus, Billy Flynn definitely has a look that would fit in with the Brooks Prentice family. And since we're heading into May sweep starting this Thursday and Billy Flynn is set to debut in spring, everything feels like it's aligning. Brooks would have the money to compete against Victor because he's an heir to the Prentice Industries publishing empire, and that would also explain the use of literary names that he has attached to his businesses, because if it is Brooks, his family is in the business of books. I honestly do hope Young and the Restless goes this route for all these reasons, but we'll see. Sometimes, you know, we stumble across something, fans come up with something that really makes sense and really fits, and then Josh Griffith does something just dumb that doesn't make sense instead. So wait to see who it is gunning for Victor.
Thank you for being a loyal listener. Follow us wherever you get your podcast, because you don't want to miss the next episode. Soap Dirt is on all the major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and more.